Today's billionaires are essentially royalty. Look back in time a few hundred years and you'll find barons, dukes, kings, and queens holding exactly the same positions in society. Whether you're a billionaire in 2022 or you're a medieval count, you enjoy many of the same advantages: money, power, influence, and plenty of property. But there's one major disadvantage that the wealthy have always struggled with: envy, hatred, and utter contempt from everyone else. When you're a billionaire, there's a massive target painted on your back. This was a lesson Barry Sherman learned all too well. Back in 2017, this big pharma CEO was murdered in his own home under extremely strange circumstances. To this day, no one is quite sure what happened, and police are still looking for the killer. But what exactly happened here? Why was Sherman killed? And why was the killer never caught? Let's find out. Barry Sherman was a legend in the pharmaceutical industry. At the time of his death, he was worth between $3 to $5 billion, depending on who you ask. Raised in a Jewish Canadian family in Toronto, Barry proved to be an incredibly bright student and started university at age 16. He eventually earned a PhD in astrophysics by 1967. Despite his scientific acumen, Sherman was also interested in entrepreneurship from a very early age. His uncle ran a company called Empire Laboratories, and when his uncle died, Barry took control of the company and became highly successful in the pharmaceutical industry. He eventually started a new company called Apotex, which remains Canada's largest producer of generic drugs and rakes in over $1 billion per year. But here's the most important thing you need to know about Barry Sherman. He made a lot of enemies. For starters, he was known for being highly litigious. He sued pretty much anyone who got in the way, including competitors and even his own family members. He sued the company that built his mansion, and after years of litigation, he was able to recover the entire cost of the property through favorable judgments. He also sued the Canadian government, essentially bullying regulators for rejecting his drugs. These lawsuits apparently cost taxpayers millions of dollars over the years. When a whistleblower broke her confidentiality agreement with Apotex and revealed that one of its drugs was extremely unsafe, she too was sued. This doctor was eventually forced to give up her position at the University of Toronto because of the lawsuit. Sherman himself stated in a memoir that he did not believe in altruism or morality. One politician described him as having, quote, "no redeeming features whatsoever," unquote. And a Canadian law professor once called him a deplorable human being for gouging drug prices. Outside of the pharmaceutical world, Barry ran a few other businesses that often turned out to be nothing more than fraudulent schemes. He started a yacht chartering company that never owned any yachts and was simply a shell corporation. He was also known for working with well-known fraudsters and controversial figures such as Kevin Trudeau, Sean Rutenberg, and Frank D'Angelo. That being said, Barry was an active philanthropist, donating millions of dollars to various charities. But upon closer examinations, it becomes clear that many of these charitable organizations were set up by Sherman himself. And after receiving the donations, Sherman simply loaned the money back to himself while receiving a tax credit at the same time. Perhaps Sherman's greatest enemies were the big dogs in the pharmaceutical industry. Sherman once stated, quote, "The branded drug companies hate us. They have private investigators on us all the time. The thought once came to my mind, why didn't they just hire someone to knock me off?" Bayer AG hired private investigators to track Sherman, and as the rumor goes, they attempted to plant illegal narcotics in his car. Make no mistake, a lot of people probably wanted this guy dead. In December of 2017, Barry and his wife, Honey, were in somewhat of a transitory period. They were selling their home while simultaneously finalizing plans to design and build a new mansion. They were also preparing to go on vacation in Miami. On December 14th, Barry failed to show up for work. The next day, a real estate agent entered Sherman's home with a couple who wanted to buy the property. The couple received a full tour of the home and eventually they were led out to the pool and hot tub area. It was here that they found the bodies of Barry and Honey. Leather belts were wrapped around their necks, tied to a metal railing near the pool. Their arms were restrained and Barry was left suspended in a seated position. The investigation into the murder began with controversy. Police officials were quoted as saying that the deaths could have been a result of a murder-suicide. Family members became distressed at this news and a second autopsy was conducted, establishing that this was clearly a double murder and not a suicide at all. The cause of death was determined to be a ligature neck compression, which means that they could not have been strangled by their own body weight. Someone else must have choked them to death. Police noted that there were no signs of forcible entry, but the Shermans often left their basement door open. If the murderer was aware of this, it would have been easy to slip inside the property, but the police had very few leads to go on, and by 2018, the surviving Sherman family members were complaining about the lack of progress.
The service began with the singing of a traditional Jewish prayer, followed by a famous Holocaust song. It had special significance to the Shermans, who were committed to Holocaust education. Afterwards, Honey's sister Mary and the couple's son Jonathan delivered emotional eulogies.
She would always call on my kids, and all she ever do is tell me how much she loved them. She loved my children like her own.
A moment to look around this room and consider the enormous impact that this is having on everyone.
And looking out at the crowd of people wearing blue, Apotex employees who have filled this room, 5,400 seats, almost all taken. He said that he does take comfort from knowing that they are there. He also spoke about, and as did many family members today who spoke about their philanthropy and how much they donated to charity. This couple, they say, have earned their place in heaven. Of course, the family going through this with, as I mentioned, all these unanswered questions surrounding how the couple died. They are asking for privacy during this very, very difficult times. They're going to be having a private shiva following today's service.
In 2021, the police released a 20-second video showing the prime suspect. As far as anyone can tell, this is the only evidence that they have to go on. So who killed Sherman? As we previously noted, the man had plenty of enemies, including those with criminal records, the kind of people who wouldn't hesitate to hire a hitman. Barry also apparently owed a lot of people a lot of money at the time of his death, up to $1 billion according to some sources. This forced him to borrow tens of millions of dollars from his son. Court documents show that the Sherman estate is somehow linked to the murder investigation. His old business partner, Frank D'Angelo, stated that somebody came to make Barry an offer he couldn't refuse, and he refused. Honey's sister believed that whoever killed him was trying to make a statement. At the end of the day, any one of Barry Sherman's enemies could have been responsible for the murder, or it could have been some random person that had never met him before. The Canadian government certainly saw Sherman as an enemy. Is that why police have been so slow to solve the crime? And what about the fact that the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world allegedly wanted him dead? One thing's for sure, being a billionaire comes at a cost. You might have money and power, but you'll never truly be safe.